Welcome to the 534th Board Meeting of the California Regional Water Quality Control Board, Central Valley Region, and of course this is the second day of a two-day meeting. I'd like to introduce the board members and staff at this time. On my far left is Carmen Ramirez of Atwater. Between Carmen and myself is John Constantino of Grass Valley. On my far right is Bob Schneider of Davis. And between Bob and myself is Sandra Miraz of Alpa. My name is Carl Longley, and I hail from the great and glorious city of Fresno. And Tam Dudek, state board member. Are you in the audience, Tam? She joined us yesterday, and she may well be back today to join us. I'd like to remind you that this board meeting is being webcast to the public. I'll now introduce our Executive Officer, Pamela Creedon, who will introduce her staff.
Good morning, Dr. Longley and members of the board. Across the room from me to my left is Andrew Altivo, Assistant Executive Officer in the Sacramento office. Next to Andrew is Patrick Palupa, Senior Staff Counsel for the board. To my far left is Karen Lanfranchi-Rizzardi, Executive Assistant for the board. And next to Karen is Ken Landau, Assistant Executive Officer in the Sacramento office. And to my immediate left is David Koop, Senior Staff Counsel for the board. To my immediate right is Andrew Dieringer, Staff Counsel for the board. In the audience, we have Clay Rogers, Assistant Executive Officer for the Fresno office, Clint Schneider, Assistant Executive Officer in the Redding office, Adam Lapitz, the soon-to-be replacement of Ken Landau, Assistant Executive Officer in the Sacramento office. Today is Ken's last day of a board meeting. And then Linda Bracamani, Assistant Executive Officer in the Sacramento office. Pardon me? Oh, Lori Oken is with us. She's the boss of all of our attorneys. She used to be our attorney, and I miss Lori, so Lori's here.
There's Lori. Morning, Lori. Guys, we got to watch out today.
She probably heard about my comment yesterday about the falling clock.
Yeah, I know. Thank you.
I'm done, thank you.
Good. Do you want to go ahead with your...
The pledge?
No, we'll do that. We do the pledge next? Okay, great. Carmen, could you lead us, please?
Sure. Ready, salute. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Yes, I was just perusing the minutes to make sure I didn't miss something. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the August 7th and 8th board meeting. Is there a motion or a discussion on the minutes?
I'll move the minutes.
And I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor of approval, state so by saying aye.
Dr. Longley, let's
Just
do
a
a roll.
second. Do we need a roll call on this?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do a roll call, please.
Call the roll.
Mr. Costantino? Aye. Ms. Ramirez? Yes. Mr. Schneider? Aye. Ms. Miraz?
I abstain. I was absent.
Dr. Longley?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Dr. Longley, for the notes for the next minutes, who made the motion and who made the second?
Bob made the motion and
Carmen made the second.
Carmen seconded. Good. And just as a general note, notice I hesitated there on the voting. Everything we do in the future is roll call. So we have to get out of old habits a little bit. And even if we call in favor and opposed and so forth, we have to go back and do the roll call.
And Dr. Longley, as a note for all the, in our meeting minutes, we will be putting how each member voted on each item.
Yes. And I understand this is a state board initiative?
It's the law. I don't
It's
know
the
who
law.
initiated
Okay.
it.
It's the law. Okay. Okay. In order to conduct our regional board meetings in a fair and efficient manner, we will be proceeding in accordance with the meeting procedures that have been provided with a summary agenda and are available here at the staff table and upon request, and are posted on the board's website or summarized on the computer screens during breaks. Any questions or comments regarding these procedures may be directed to Kiran Lanfranci Rosardi, our administrative assistant. So that takes us to board member communications. Bob Schneider and stated he.
Yeah, Carl, I sent a written to Kieran, some written report on this, but I did participate in the last Clear Lake Cyanobacteria Task Force meeting call, and we had one of our staff on that too, Amy Miller, I think, but I'm not sure I had her name in my written comments, but and then I had a lunch with David Guy, and we talked about Amy Little was the staff person at that call. And then I had lunch with David Guy, who's been a longtime friend, and we talked about kids, we talked about family, we talked about Yosemite, and we did talk about groundwater, changes in groundwater use on the west side of the Sacramento Valley. We did not discuss the board letter that was sent to David Guy at NACWA, which I received a copy of that afternoon or the next day, I don't recall, but I just want to make that clear. And then I know some others here attended the Water Quality Coordinating Committee meeting, 2-day meeting, and we talked about some of the most important things, I think. One, we talked about the water bond a lot. We talked about climate change issues and the directive that we really need to be thinking about climate change on all our actions. And we talked about wetlands. And it's always fun to hear a lot about what all the regional boards are working on and what they're doing, and everybody gets the same time, which seems really unfair when you consider the workloads that different regional boards have. So I appreciated the report by Carl and Pamela on what this board.
And I appreciate your report regarding us via the other boards. Is there anyone else wanting to report activities? If not, I'll go ahead. On August 14th, I had a discussion of funding funding digester research with Sandy Schubert and members of the dairy industry as part of a conference call. And then on August 19th, achieving a sustainable water. I gave a presentation on achieving a sustainable California water future through innovations in science and technology to the East Bay Leadership Council Water Task Force in Walnut Creek. On August 29th, I had a toxicity policy briefing by Water Board staff here in this office. On September 3rd, I toured salinity treatment facilities with Dr. Cohen of UCLA and his graduate students and the U.S. Bureau of Reclamation Treatment Facility staff. And then on October 2nd and 3rd, I was involved in the Water Quality Coordinating Committee meeting that Bob just talked about. Yes, there was an emphasis on thinking about climate change and its impacts on our actions, and so that takes me back to think about yesterday when we were talking about the Delta, and we were talking at, what was the number, 260 years, I think, that EPA put for the cleanup of the Aerojet site. I think that's the number I heard, something like that, and the mercury cleanup will probably take longer. And so what's the Delta going to look like in, let's say, 300 plus years? And I suspect that in a much shorter time frame than that, based upon data coming out of the gauge near the Golden Gate, the anticipated sea level rise is greatly going to change the character of the Delta. And so as we invest in infrastructure, as we invest in various activities we do, I think that's a good message. We need to be looking forward with the science that we have to ensure that our actions are not wasted as we go into the future. Then there was another topic, and that was yesterday's RMP actions that this board took to initiate, if you will, through some amendments to some waste discharge requirements and a change of a time schedule loader and so forth, the RMP program in the Delta. And I think, Bob, at the end, you made some very, 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 very important remarks regarding that in your discussion. And I think, as you have pointed out to me, that this is an effort that we really need to talk about, get out to the public at large. It's the kind of the regional monitoring activity is something that's going to provide much better data. Let us do that kind of planning we need to do, and provide us the data to do that, but at the same time be cost effective. And I think what would you like to add to that, Bob?
I think I said it plenty yesterday, but what I do think is what we should take about this is this is a really good subject. I think that we should think about telling our story of the board, and either get a write-up, or I don't want to put stuff on staff, but I think they ought to think about writing this up as a short story that can be at least put through the EPA newsletters and maybe picked up on a broader scale. I think it's not like we're there and it's done deal. But I think a vote of confidence is what we did in this process to move to a more effective system of monitoring, a more cost-effective system, and I think that's always better government. And I think Pamela, I think we should consider how we might tell that story on a broader scale.
And Carl, I would agree that the significance of yesterday would be worth making a little more effort to publicize and get it out there.
It might be good, like in the Water Education Foundation.
That'd be a good place to start, certainly. And so this is something we need to bring to fruition. I think Pamela has a lot of time next week to work on it. So sorry for that. I just couldn't resist it. Our executive officer is going to be doing a tour looking at very clean environment up in Plumas County. We're expecting a report back on water quality. With that said, are there any more board member communications? Therefore, we'll go to item 18 on the agenda. Do we have any cards from the public? Is there anyone who wishes to speak on any matter not before the board in today's agenda? Not seeing any, we'll go to the executive officer's report.
So, Dr. Longley, I have a couple of things I wanted to, there's a couple I'd like Clint and Clint Schneider to speak a little bit about the bear activity, it's our emergency response, burn area emergency response work that we're doing with the Forest Service. And then ask Joe Karkowski just to say a couple words about the expert panel. He attended the meeting with State Board on how we're going to proceed and move forward. So, but I would like to point out, if they would come up so they're ready to speak, I would appreciate it. But I do want to point out for Member Schneider, you asked a question about the policy, the work on the mercury risk reduction. Or no, the offset program. I'm so sorry, offset program. And we did get an update, and it's in the general section of the EO report on page 37, in which the State Board staff basically started to work on this. EPA put out some national guidelines. What they were going to propose or thought about proposing wouldn't really be in alignment with the EPA policy. And as a result of that, a lot of work has to be done, and they don't have the staff resources. So that's why it's been put on hold, and it's been indefinite in order to have that done. I do want to point out to the board, we do have our year-end performance measures posted in here for the last year, fiscal year from July 1st, 2013 to June 30th, 2014. And then we have our year-to-date for this current fiscal year. And through this effort, we've began doing our portfolio management with all of our program managers. It's a new process for us to better manage our workload and to have better communication between staff and management and between offices to better communicate. We have program managers in the regional board in all of our offices, and yet staff, we may have a program manager, say, in Reading, but they have to make sure staff in Fresno and Reading are doing the work in the program areas to meet their performance measures. And so we've implemented this process of called portfolio management to help elevate the importance of the workload and the work planning that has to go on, and to improve the communication to ensure that a manager who has a staff working for them who's responsible for doing work by a program manager that doesn't report to them, that communication takes place, and we make sure we meet our objectives at the end of the year. So it's been a process. We're learning to do it, and Clint's been leading the charge on that for us, and it's been a good process for all of us at all levels at the regional board. So Clint, if you want to just chat a little bit about the bear and about who we've assigned for this current King's Fire. Thank you.
Sure. So there's been some interest, I believe, from Board Member Schneider regarding the King's Fire, and there'll be some updates in just a few moments on that. But what I did want to mention is that Shane Edmonds of the Central Valley Water Board's Reading office is currently working or participating on the BEAR team associated with the King's Fire. BEAR stands for the Burned Area Emergency Response Team. In addition to that, I just wanted to quickly mention that we have participated in these BEAR teams on occasion over the last about 8 years. Various Central Valley Water Board staff. It's become apparent that both the Forest Service and the water boards could reap some significant benefits by formalizing our participation in the BEAR process. So early this summer, Central Valley Water Board staff, myself, Angela Wilson, the Forest Activities Program Manager, Ms. Oken, Assistant Deputy Director, Assistant Chief Counsel, my apologies, of Office of Chief Counsel, is participating as well, along with Nick Kuntz, the State Board's Forest Activities Program Manager. The idea was that we would explore some opportunities to memorialize our formal participation in the BEAR process, that being through a memorandum of understanding. I sent an email to Tom Howard, Director of State Board, in September, asking his permission to proceed with these conversations in the Forest Service. He is authorized to proceed, and at this point in time, everything's looking very favorable, but we'll just have to see where that goes. Really, the issues to iron out are one, staff's participation in the training requires special training because they are deployed behind active fire lines. The other piece that's critical is the funding mechanisms. And just as an example, Shane Edmonds, his participation over 2 weeks will require approximately 90 hours of overtime. And so we want to make sure that those funding mechanisms are in place. So there's some kinks there to work out. Doesn't seem to be anything that we can't tackle. So just wanted to make sure that you're apprised of that effort. Thank you.
Well, I just, I watched the response to fires over the last, 5 to 10 years, and the change that has occurred, and the care that's taken, I think, in restoration work after burns. And I think that's a significant change that needs to be acknowledged, that, you got to put the fire out, but getting water bars on new roads to stop erosion, and doing appropriate plantings, and a lot of the work that's going on now. And I was impressed with one in my part of the world over on BLM lands, the Bucks Fire, and it burned a lot of chaparral, and they graded wide bulldozer roads down the ridge lines. And when it came to cleanup, they went in with a large backhoe and basically pulled a lot of that brush that brushed away back onto the road to, it provides shade for new growth, and it, helps stop erosion. And, I don't think those things used to happen, and it's nice to see that. So I think we're making a lot of progress. And I want to backtrack a little bit to the performance reports.
Yes.
And, I always look at those, and because, it's a part of our job, I think, as the board, is to look and make sure our executive officers are getting the job done. But some of those, were real successful, and others were not so successful. And I think what's important as we set our objectives is to be challenging, but not overwhelming. And, you got to be reasonable about people's times, and they want to feel successful and need to feel successful. And I often think, if people are achieving, 90 to 100% of their goal, that's pretty darn good. If they're hitting 120, then the goal wasn't high enough maybe, or maybe
Well,
they have.
and that's why I asked them to put in the comment period, so that we could better explain. I mean, there's obviously circumstances that occur that pull people away and they're not able to
Yeah.
meet the objectives. And this year, State Board changed how they were allowing things to be reported, so it looked like we did a lot more work, where if they had asked us to put the number out to account for those, we would have probably had a much closer number.
Yeah, and I think that's what I was going to say. I think doing a narrative so we can easily understand what's going on, because I know that staff's doing a really diligent job, and sometimes they do get pulled away from one job to another job, and that's going to be reflected. So we just providing that narrative is.
And the
is
other, I mean,
helpful.
the State Board reports this. I have it put in the EO report because with the State Board, we're not allowed to make quarterly changes. We'll be meeting with our program managers quarterly to see where we are and see if we need to make adjustments to our objectives, especially if they get redirected to a different higher priority project. We can't make those adjustments on the State Board website, but we can do it here in the EO report to better explain to the board what we're doing.
Thank you very much.
Hello, Joe Karkowski, Chief of the Irrigated Lands Regulatory Program. Pamela asked me to speak a little bit to the next steps that the State Board's going to take on the recommendations provided by the Ag Expert Panel. They recently provided their report to the State Board. And a lot of the focus was on how the Water Board should deal with nitrate issues from irrigated ag. So I just clipped out, this is from their executive summary, the recommended regulatory program. I'm not going to go through it in any sort of detail, but in terms of the next steps, the State Board met with the water boards earlier this week. Their plan is to develop a staff report to look at these recommendations and come up with recommended regulations and policies that the regional board should consider adopting. So the process will be for the State Board staff will work with the lead regional board staff folks to develop those recommendations. Hopefully we'll come to consensus on many of them. And then the staff report will go to the State Board as an information item. The current plan is April, which I think is a little aggressive because there'll be an opportunity for public comment on that staff report. And then the plan would be for Tom Howard to send a memo to the executive officers with those recommendations. So it's not necessarily being considered, as a policy or guidance that State Board would develop. So a couple things that, we recommended was that where there are consensus items between the water boards, that we should expedite those to get those, highlight those. The other issue is we would like to see how this schedule corresponds with the schedule to deal with the petition in front of the State Board on our East San Joaquin WDRs, because there could be issues raised by these recommendations that are also brought up in the petition. So there could be concern about, ex parte communication and sort of the overlap between those two processes. So there are basically, 8 main recommendations. There's also, a lot of text in the report itself that we'll be looking at.
Any questions? I just let the State Board, when I was on the call, let them know that time is of the essence. We have a lot of things pending, waiting for that expert, for their recommendations to come out.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. And I believe we have the link to the report in the EO report, if I remember correctly, and if not, we can send that.
Would it be possible just to get a printout of this page?
Yeah, sure. Yep.
Now, go back and go over that ex parte thing again, because that's important to us.
Well,
We don't want
Lori's here and our other attorneys are here and they can explain that more. But basically, there's the petition in front of the State Board on our East San Joaquin order, and there are all sorts of issues that have been raised by various parties. And there are some of the issues raised by the parties are touched on in this report. So the folks at State Board who prepared who are going to prepare this staff report are actually on the petition review team of the State Board. So that's where for us to talk to them about, issues that don't involve all the other designated or interested parties, we can't do that. So anyway, maybe Patrick can explain that a little more.
The issue really has to do with the fact that there's significant overlap between the issues that are addressed by the Ag Panel report and the issues that both the petitioners are raising on petition and that the board is defending on petition. So when you have a crossover of very significant issues, when you have a situation where the State Board could potentially use this as a guidance for how it decides the petition, all of a sudden you can't have the same free discussions that you would ordinarily have with the State Board. The regional board can't because we're a party in the petition. So again, it's complex. That's why this board submitted a comment letter as opposed to just talking with State Board staff.
So you can't discuss content, but you could discuss dates when the thing is going to be out and so forth, I would presume.
Generally speaking, yeah.
Okay. Good. I appreciate that.
And I would just say that we have a lot of confidence in you, Joe, so I'm glad that you're representing our region. I'm sure you're doing a very good job.
Thank you very much.
Any further questions for
So now I have some staff awards to make.
Okay.
And then we'll do Ken's resolution. So we have a number of them today, and I'll start with, we have 3 individuals and then a group award. The first one goes to Gene Davis, an engineering geologist in the Sacramento office. Gene is working on completing the Royal Mountain Mine Basin Plan, Mountain King Mine Basin Plan Amendment and the 2014 Integrated Report, which is a report, the Clean Water Act has 2 reports due, and so the State Board has integrated those, both 305 and 303. So, which is a lot of data. 2 complicated multi-year projects which have undergone a number of course corrections. Gene contributes very positively to both efforts. In March, Gene helped bring the Royal Mountain King Mine Amendment to our board for adoption. For the integrated report, Gene is instrumental in organizing and facilitating review of the enormous data set used to evaluate our region's water bodies. Gene is a steadfast worker who enjoys helping others. In addition to his other responsibilities, he helps staff in our office with GIS mapping. Day after day, he quietly gets his work done and positively contributes to accomplishing the mission of our agency. Gene is very deserving of the Superior Accomplishment Award. So the next one goes to Stacy Gotham from our Reading office, our Water Resources Control Engine. Stacy is receiving the award for her outstanding work in the NPDES unit in the Reading office. Stacy is the acting lead for the NPDES unit. She excels in this role, and her contributions to the unit, the office, and the region are highly valued and appreciated. Several new staff have joined the unit since Stacy has been the lead. She has helped to train the new staff and review their work products. She helps plan and organize the unit's work and contributes to management discussions regarding NPDES program activities. She has excellent written and verbal communication skills and provides insightful comments. She has had a key role in numerous permitting actions and several enforcement cases. Stacy is reliable, hardworking, flexible, and most importantly, has a positive attitude. Her demonstrated program knowledge and attention to detail has earned her a solid reputation in the NPDES program and the respect of her peers, supervisors, and the regulated community. Stacy's efforts continue to help the Central Valley Water Board achieve its goal in protecting water quality. And the next one goes to Kristen Gomes from our Fresno office, an engineer in our Fresno office. Kristen is a caseworker for 18 landfills in the Tulare, Kings, and Madera counties, including the Clean Harbors and Chemical Waste Management hazardous waste facilities. Her responsibilities include all aspects of permitting, as well as compliance and enforcement. Kristen excels in the performance of her job duties through the detailed and timely completion of numerous tasks, including, but not limited to, the review of complex technical documents, construction design plans and specifications, construction quality assurance reports, self-monitoring reports, and performance of facility inspections, and the development of waste discharge requirements. In addition, she conveys her knowledge and experience by readily assisting staff in other units and unregistered staff to help develop their professional skills. In providing such service, sorry about that, Kristen supports our organization's mission of protecting water quality through compliance with WDRs and also supporting the discharge's ability to maintain construction and operation schedules. With the excellent and consistent performance of her job duties, Kristen is being awarded the Superior Accomplishment Award. And our next one goes to a group, and this was a special group that we all have learned to rely on very much. Our attorneys, David Koop, Patrick Polupa, and Alex Mayer. David Koop, Senior Staff Counsel, Patrick, Senior Staff Counsel, and Alex Mayer, who was Staff Counsel, now he's with DTSC, are assigned to assist the Central Valley Water Board with its day-to-day legal affairs. The Central Valley Water Board is the state's largest regional board, covering approximately 40% of the state, including 38 counties or portions thereof. The board is charged with protecting water quality through this vast area and does so through its 3 offices, including more than 220 staff, 17 different programs, thousands of dischargers, and numerous water quality issues and concerns. As counsel, David, Patrick, and Alex are called on to assist the board, management, and staff on just about everything. To illustrate the point, we might be at a loss if we couldn't count on their guidance with program development, interpretation of statutes and regulation, policy development and interpretation, permit review, litigation, enforcement, settlement discussions, deed restrictions, bankruptcy proceedings, CEQA, NEPA, hearing procedures, and counsel to the board and the executive officer in contested enforcement matters, and for me on just about everything. They're on my speed dial. David, Patrick, and Alex worked hard to not only understand the issues from the strict legal perspective, but from the view of the policymaker, management, and technical staff. They make a point to accompany staff in the field to better understand the challenges and financial sacrifices of protecting water quality, while balancing the need to develop and implement policies and regulations that are understandable and workable for both the board and the regulated community. While their in-depth knowledge of the legal issues governing our work provides the board's confidence when facing uncharted territory or strong opposition, it is their experience that often provides the board the added benefit of crafting creative solutions to complex problems. This experience also allows them to serve as an invaluable resource to their colleagues at the Office of Chief Counsel. Through all this, these gentlemen maintain a positive attitude through a barrage of emails, conference calls, meetings, and last-minute fire drills. We cannot overstate the significant contribution they provide staff, management, and the board. It is invaluable. On behalf of the board, executive management, and staff, we appreciate David, Patrick, and Alex's hard work and dedication in assisting the Central Valley Water Board in their mission to preserve and enhance the quality of California's water resources for the benefit of present and future generations. So thank you.
Pamela, I'd certainly like to state that I, as one board member, am very proud to have folks like this that you're honoring today. And haven't had the honor to work with all of the folks up there directly, but have had the honor, I don't know if it's an honor or not, of working directly with our attorneys.
It's an honor.
But I must say the things that you've said about all of these people really rings true, and these three guys here in particular, because I am part of that email stream that goes back and forth and telephone calls. Their efforts are I know about personally, and I can speak to my appreciation for their work.
Thank you.
And I would add that these three people they conduct themselves with so much integrity that it is easy for me as a member of the public and a member of the board to feel confident that when there are separation of duties, that these people uphold them very strictly. And, for members of the public, I hope that you realize that we don't take your confidence lightly, and these people uphold those barriers that the law entrusts them to uphold. So these are excellent attorneys, and I'm grateful for their guidance and advice.
We would like to get a bunch of pictures now. Dr. Longley, you're concerned with us going up there, so where would you like us to have
Well, I
pictures?
think that maybe for the time being, I think there's a couple of issues that I think we need to talk about in the future. For the future, maybe we can find a time during another board meeting. One is the pictures, and these are just logistical issues, nothing more. The
And we'd
other
like
thing,
a fan blowing so our hair looks better in the pictures.
yeah, I know. Yeah, such things as these huge monitors we have. I can hide from the public behind them, and issues such as that. There's some logistical issues, but I think we need to think about the pictures too, because I've seen the pictures, and we're up here on this podium standing. We got to put this stuff down.
Well, it's just the board on high giving us direction, Dr. Longley. So why don't we just take the pictures today, and we'll talk about logistics later.
We need to talk about it. Ken, could you join me up here, please? One of my board members, as I was coming up here, was asking me if I was going to cry. If I do cry, it'll be some point in the future when I want some information and can't get it. What I'm presenting is a resolution commending Kenneth D. Landau for his 30 years of service with the California Regional Water Quality Control Board, Central Valley Region. And the board has met in closed session and determined that Ken's services are so invaluable that we're sending a resolution to the state board saying that Ken cannot retire. Oh, no, excuse me.
That's fine.
Whereas Ken began his nearly 40 years of, by the way, Ken does those kind of things in the resolution he didn't write this one, so it was up to me to put a little bit of Ken into this. Whereas Ken began his nearly 40 years of service with the Water Board family as a student with the Central Coast Water Board in December 1974. That's ancient history. And whereas Ken loved water so much that he elected to begin his illustrious full-time career with the water boards as a water resources control engineer in the Colorado River Water Board in Palm Desert, where those of us attending WQCC were told that they are in a 1,000-year drought. Certainly water scarce there. And whereas to the benefit of the Central Valley Water Board, Ken relocated to our board because he made a great choice to follow his future bride to Sacramento, July 1984. And whereas Ken's hard work and dedication to this board and its mission to protect water quality resulted in career advancements culminating in his promotion to Assistant Executive Officer in September 2000. And whereas throughout Ken's tenure as AEO, the board called upon him to serve as interim executive officer, where he provided exceptional and invaluable service to the board as interim EO while still fulfilling his role as AEO. I can certainly amen to that, having been here while that was taking place. And whereas Ken's institutional knowledge from more than 30 years of service to this board has been invaluable to the board, management staff, our dischargers, and other parties will be missed greatly. And whereas Ken has been an incredible teacher and mentor, providing guidance to staff, managers, and his peers in the executive offices and the board, and whereas Ken's extensive institutional knowledge has greatly assisted staff and the board in formulating regulations and board policy, and has resulted in innovation and exceptional efforts to download his memory. And whereas Ken has provided invaluable help and assistance to the executive officer by acting on her behalf at meetings with dischargers, interested parties, and providing her guidance and advice on many board issues. And whereas Ken's keen technical skills are put to good use as chief interpreter of the executive officer's scribbles and serving as chief timekeeper at board meetings, and being very innovative in putting timers together when others are maliciously destroyed, tasks he took on to the relief of all other managers. And whereas Ken is a consummate professional and an all-around good guy, where his calm demeanor and patience and unique wry humor made him just a pleasure to work with, and whereas Ken will be sorely missed by the board, executive officer, assistant executive officer, management, and staff. Therefore, it be resolved that the members of the Regional Water Quality Control Board and staff respectfully extend to Ken on the occasion of his retirement our sincere thanks and appreciation for a job well done, and be it further resolved that this regional board and staff wish Ken and his family only happiness and fulfillment of their plans in his retirement years. So that was adopted today, Ken, and unless I hear otherwise, it's unanimous.
Thank you.
And I'd like to add my personal thanks to Ken for the job he's done over the years. I've known Ken for a long time, and I've always known him to be the highest, have the highest performance as a true professional, but also to tell you the dirty truth when the dirty truth is out there, and you got to know it, and not polish anything. And I really appreciate your directness and the way that you have really handled your career here with this board, and I tell you what, we're gonna miss you really badly. So thank you once again. Yep. Thank you. And with that, we're going to present you with this, And we have to get some pictures.
Dr. Longley, I was wondering if we need a voice vote on that,
Roll call.
or a roll call vote, I mean.
We'll do a roll call.
But I'm an aye.
Oh, let me shake your hand while we're doing this. That's so big that it's kind of clumsy.
You don't want it pointing at the flash, however.
No. Thank you, Ken.
Thank you.
It would only be Ken who would figure out that shouldn't point at the flash because, all details taken care of.
Entirely up to the chair.
What's that?
She was wanting to know if we were taking a picture up there.
Yes.
Yes, we want a picture.
Yep.
We want to be in the
Why don't you
photo.
all come down? That's what we did yesterday, and that's what we should do today. Excuse me for... No, you're going to have to hold this.
I've got to hold that. Okay.
We got to move over. Yeah, that's. You want to sit right here? Here, stand right here.
Thank you.
You're really good at this. I'm glad that I'm on the board to see you.
And I seldom miss an opportunity to say something. When I started with the board permanently in the Region 7, Colorado River Basin, but I actually started as a student assistant in the Central Coast region, it never occurred to me I would be actually retiring from the same agency. I've stayed here because I love the mission of the board. I've loved the people I've worked with. They're very good. You've seen some examples of them. My coworkers today getting other awards. I've worked for a whole series of executive officers who've been very dedicated to that, including Pamela. And board members have been very supportive of water quality and the staff through the years. I felt very blessed to have a job that most days I got up and was happy to go to. There were certainly others. And one of the things I was talking with the IT folks on my last day was bringing a chainsaw in and cutting down the monitors, the supports for the monitors to get them lower, because we've been trying to figure out what to do with that logistical issue. So thank you for the awards, the kind words, and thank you all for a wonderful career. And keep up the good work. There's lots to do. So, thank you.
Carl, I've had a great pleasure while I've been on the board working with Ken. And I'm just concerned about his retiring, but his response was pretty irrefutable. Ken said, "You leave the job, you die or you retire. I've decided to retire." So thank you, we'll miss you. And it's been a great pleasure.
Thank you very much. We have we've moved item 6 from yesterday to today, and item 6 is the board meeting calendar for 2015. Does anybody have any conflicts other than those that they might have reported to Ken already?
And I have received no reports of any conflicts with his schedule.
And I was concerned about some, checked them, and I don't have those conflicts.
Okay? So we will go with this then.
It sounds like it's a go.
Okay?
And please help me, which item is the uncontested calendar?
Do we need to approve that? Or
No. Which item's the uncontested calendar?
Item 20.
20? Ah, here it is. Ha! No wonder. Okay, this is a time and place for a public hearing to consider adoption of uncontested items 26 through 30, which consists of MPDS permits and time schedule orders, cease and desist orders and time schedule orders, waste discharge requirements, WDR, MPDS rescissions, and the change of name and or ownership. Does anyone wish to discuss any of these items? I see no one. Are there any late revisions?
Yes, there are, Dr. Longley. To item 26D, this is for the Port of Stockton's MS4 permit amendments.
Okay.
Be a minor reduction in sampling to allow representative sampling at one of their discharge locations.
Is that the only?
That's the only late revision.
Okay. Close the hearing. Is there any discussion or comments? I'll certainly accept the motion.
I would move we approve with the late revision.
And I will second.
Carmen moved, John seconded. Roll call vote.
Ms. Miraz?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider? Ms. Ramirez? Mr. Costantino?
Yes.
Dr. Longley?
Yes,
Motion carries.
very good. We are going to take a, no, I don't think so. We'll move on to the Rubicon Trail, which is item number 21. This is the time and place for a public hearing to consider the rescission of cleanup and abatement orders regarding the Rubicon Trail in El Dorado County. Is there anyone present who is contesting the proposed actions and wishes to present evidence or testimony on this matter? Since I see no one present to contest this matter, this board will proceed based on the agenda materials and the record. Are there any late revisions or staff comments?
Dr. Longley, we had several presentations.
We are doing presentations on these items. Dr.
You would like to do presentations, okay? Go ahead with your present, and I have some cards, interestingly enough. Nobody stood up. Well, let me go ahead and read the
Well,
whole
no one's
procedure.
contesting it, Dr. Longley. They just want to speak to it. the item.
Okay, since there are persons present wishing to speak to this item, we will proceed with the hearing. This hearing will be conducted in accordance with the notice of public hearing and the meeting procedures published with the meeting agenda. This time, evidence should be introduced on whether the proposed action should be taken. All persons expecting to testify, please stand at this time, raise your right hand, and take the following oath. Do you swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth? If so, answer, I do.
I do.
The designated party is El Dorado County. The total times allowed for testimony and cross-examination are as follows. Regional Board staff, 15 minutes. El Dorado County, 15 minutes. All other persons are interested persons and shall limit their testimony to 3 minutes, and a timer will be used. Please state your name, address, affiliation, and whether you have taken the oath before you testify. Does council have any legal issues to discuss at this time?
No, Dr. Longley. I would note that this isn't an adversarial, could have been an adversarial proceeding, but it's not an adversarial proceeding. So I doubt there's going to be any cross-examination, more just a report on what has happened since the 2009 cleanup and abatement order was adopted, and why we're rescinding it today. So a lot of positive stuff to come back to report to the board. I will also note that I have to head downtown. We've got litigation that the board's involved with that I have to appear for, so I'm handing this off to David Coop, so he'll be bringing this one home, I suppose.
Thank you very much for notifying us of that. We will now begin with testimony by staff.
Good morning, Dr. Longley and members of the board. My name is Wendy Wiles. I'm an Environmental Program Manager in the Sacramento office. I'm here today to ask that you rescind the cleanup and abatement order that was issued in 2009 to El Dorado County and the U.S. Forest Service. I'll provide an introduction with this presentation, and then the county has a little longer presentation that will provide more details about the work that's been done. As you may remember, this order was extremely contentious when it was adopted. This room was packed with people. It was standing room only. There were demonstrations going on in the parking lot, and we had the Highway Patrol here to keep order. But now, 5 years later, the Rubicon Trail has become a real success story. These two maps show the location of the Rubicon Trail. If you look at the upper left-hand white map here, it's the vicinity map. Sacramento's right here on the left, Lake Tahoe over here on the right. The Rubicon Trail goes across the crest of the Sierras over toward Lake Tahoe. It's actually right next to Desolation Wilderness and Loon Lake, and it is within the area that was burned by the King Fire. The trail has now been reopened, and I understand that there was minimal to no damage on the trail itself. The fire burned west and north of the trail. And if you do have additional questions about the King Fire, after this presentation, we have Richard Thornburg with the Forest Service here, as well as the county, and they can answer any questions you might have about the fire and the restoration work. This larger map here shows the 14 miles of the Rubicon Trail which are within El Dorado County. That's highlighted in yellow. The trail does extend up and over into Placer County and to the west shore of Lake Tahoe. That portion of the trail is within the Lahontan Regional Board, and so our order only addressed the 14 miles within our region, which is in El Dorado County. There are two trailheads, one here at Airport Flat Campground and one over here at Loon Lake. This map also shows that the trail crosses both private land and public land. The private land is shown in white, and then the green squares are the Forest Service land, and that makes management of the trail more of a challenge. Vehicles have driven on the Rubicon Trail for over 100 years. In the 1950s, the Rubicon became one of the most famous four-wheel drive trails in the world, and it still has that distinction today. The trail includes well-defined dirt and gravel roads, as well as granite domes, granite ledges, and rock debris that create challenging conditions for four-wheel drives. The cleanup and abatement order addressed the three main water quality concerns: erosion of sediment, and in particular, erosion when soils are saturated with water after a rainstorm or during snowmelt conditions, spills of oil and grease, and human waste. Prior to adoption of the cleanup and abatement order, there were many areas of the trail in which 3 to 4 feet of soil had eroded away, and that's an example of this photo on the left. This red arrow shows 3 to 4 feet of soil which has been eroded. As a result of the order, the county installed over 475 BMPs to reduce sediment movement. An example of a BMP is shown on the slide on the right. Logs and rocks act as stairs to provide traction on an uphill portion of the trail, preventing erosion. The county has enlisted the four-wheel drive user groups to monitor and maintain these BMPs. The second water quality concern is the spilling of petroleum fluids along the harder sections of the trail, especially where vehicles scrape along the granite or even tip over. Prior to the order, there were numerous places where rocks and soils were stained and you could smell petroleum in the air. But since adoption of the order, the county has educated the users on the need to immediately clean up their spills and has distributed spill kits to help them do so. Although vehicles continue to spill petroleum and grease at times, the county and the user groups regularly clean up these spills using a solution that's designed to degrade petroleum. The trail is much cleaner now than it used to be. The order had also addressed the issue of human waste. The Rubicon Trail is heavily used, and prior to adoption, there weren't any formal toilets, and there were very unsanitary conditions. But now, a vault toilet has been installed at a camping area, and 8 portable toilets have been brought into other locations along the trail. The Rubicon Trail Foundation built a four-wheel drive septic hauler to empty the portable toilets on a regular basis. Sanitation has been much improved. The most contentious issue addressed by the cleanup and abatement order was how to protect the trail when soils are saturated. This can occur after heavy rainstorms or during the winter or spring when snow is melting. At those times, water can be flowing down the trail or can create large lakes in the middle of the trail. In 2012, the county, the Forest Service, and the public came to an agreement on how to manage the trail during saturated soil conditions, and last winter, the county fully implemented their saturated soil plan. This plan includes a number of inspections during the winter, with the results posted on the county's Rubicon Trail website. If the inspectors find standing water on the trail at any of 7 different locations, then the county will close access to the trail until the soil is no longer saturated. So last winter, even with the drought conditions, the county still closed the trail for a total of 34 days. To summarize, all of the reports required by the cleanup and abatement order have been submitted, and significant actions have taken place to better manage the trail and prevent water quality impacts. The order required submittal of 2 comprehensive plans. These plans will guide the ongoing management of the Rubicon Trail so that water quality continues to be protected. A draft of the rescission order was sent out for public comments, and the 5 entities listed on this slide responded. All of the comments were in support of the rescission. No opposition has been voiced. Staff recommend that the board rescind the cleanup and abatement order. And before I end this presentation, I would like to thank El Dorado County for their efforts, and in particular, former County Supervisor Jack Sweeney and former County Council Ed Knapp were particularly supportive. Whenever there were political log jams, Jack or Ed would get all the parties together to get resolution. Staff from the County Roads Department did all the hard work. They were out there in 100-degree heat installing the BMPs. They're out there in 20-degree temperatures doing the winter inspections. And then Vicki Sanders from the Parks Department deserves a lot of credit. She obtained over $7 million in grants to do the work. She created the public education program. You've got that calendar in front of you. And she just kept everybody on track and kept things moving. So I really appreciate all their efforts, as well as the efforts of the Forest Service and the user groups. This ends staff's presentation. I'd like to enter the presentation, the case file, and the record, and I can answer any questions.
Wendy, I thank you for a very interesting report and those folks you mentioned and the great work they did. I think that's testament to some very good coordination on your part and some dedicated folks who wanted to see something happen. And my congratulations to everybody. John, did you?
Yeah, just this is actually my first encounter with the Rubicon Trail as a board member. I think I missed the last update, and I wasn't here in '09. So I appreciate the story, and it's a great one. The question is that I have, since I don't have the background, does the part of the trail that extends into the other watershed, do they have the same issues, or did the BMPs carry over, or did we have any influence?
Yeah, that's a good question. Actually, the Lahontan Board issued their own cleanup and abatement order 2 or 3 years prior to when we issued our order. So that section of the trail was already in pretty good condition, so we focused on our section.
Good, thank you very much.
Okay, and the county now has a coordinated presentation, if you would allow that.
And here, just as a formality, I have to ask if El Dorado County wishes to cross-examine. And we will go then to testimony by El Dorado County. It's a very beautiful part of the world, as you can see.
Good morning, Dr. Longley and members of the board. I'm Vicki Sanders, El Dorado County Parks Manager. Rubicon Trail falls under my division, so I am responsible for this beautiful piece of land.
You have a very good, very interesting job.
Yes, I do.
I'm envious of you.
I say that every time I'm out there and I fall down, because I'm usually walking. In 2009, Supervisor Jack Sweeney stood before your board and accepted this cleanup and abatement order, which was just the beginning of an amazing coordination effort for many, many agencies. And we have major accomplishments that we are very proud to bring to you today. But there's a large group of people behind this that I'd like to make sure that I acknowledge. The we behind everything you are going to see is El Dorado County, El Dorado National Forest, your board and your staff, which have been fabulous to work with. We really appreciate all their efforts. State Parks, Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Division, the State Historic Preservation Office, Friends of the Rubicon, Rubicon Trail Foundation, Center for Sierra Nevada Conservation, user groups, Panel A and B, property owners, and various other stakeholders. This makes up the accomplishments that you're going to see as we try to quickly present these to you. You're going to hear from a few different groups. Instead of it just being me telling you what we've done, these are the people behind it that are going to help us to tell our story. So I want to introduce Dan Kickert, the Senior Civil Engineer from the Community Development Agency of Transportation Division.
Sorry. Hello, my name is Dan, as Vicki had said. I wanted to go ahead and kind of talk about some of the implementation measures that were taken to go ahead and address the sediment problems on the Rubicon Trail. As I was aware, for the cleanup and abatement order, the county or the responsible parties had to go ahead and prepare a saturated soils water quality protection plan, and the plan was to go ahead and address issues of sediment transport during saturated soil conditions on the trail. During the development of that plan, the county had determined that there were close to 22 different types of BMPs that could be constructed on the trail to address the sediment issues. Those 22 went into then the over 475 BMPs that have been constructed on the trail. And that goes from Airport Flats to the county line, and then also from Loon Lake to the intertie portion of the trail. I kind of wanted to just point out some of these BMPs that were implemented. We had here on the left of this slide is the rock energy dissipators, which act more as like a catch basin for sediment during saturated soils conditions to allow for that capture of sediment and then ultimate removal of that sediment as needed. We also had areas that were low crossings that we've essentially rocked with rock fill, in this case the rock ditch crossing, to go ahead and armor and protect during those saturated soil conditions to keep the material in place. We also had areas where we've utilized rock slope protection, and in this case it shows it on the left-hand side. It's an area similar to the slide that Wendy had shown that was cut in, essentially armoring and protecting those edges, and then the application of fill along the trail itself. We also have log barriers in areas that were installed, and this was key in terms of keeping the OHV and user group access along the trail corridor itself, protecting resources outside of the trail and blocking off essentially abandoned or alternate routes that were not being utilized or not being used. This is at the top of Big Sluice. It drains down to the Rubicon River watershed, but it's kind of a key point in that it's an area where we had eroding slopes, eroding trail, and county transportation maintenance staff had gone in there and built up that rock wall protection in there with rock fill along the trail itself. So it's monumental too when you think about it from the standpoint of it's not like doing this work from the side of the road in Placerville or nearby areas. They're far remote locations, and so it's definitely kind of a logistical heavy load to carry, no pun intended. And then the last thing relative to the BMPs was just to comment on the fact of the maintenance standpoint, to show then that these rock energy dissipators or these catch basins do catch material. And from up until 2013, county maintenance staff would go ahead and maintain these. Now we're actually transitioning to where the user groups are actually taking on that responsibility with county oversight through an Adopt a Trail program, which Vicki will talk about a little bit later. And then to touch on the winter monitoring, the other part of the cleanup and abatement order had requested that the responsible parties look at a seasonal closure of the trail. Based on the amount of BMPs, the over 475 that were installed, it was determined that we didn't necessarily need to have hard closures on the trail. However, it was deemed to be important to go ahead and actually do monitoring of the trail during the wintertime during saturated soil conditions, essentially, predominantly from December up until the end of May. And so this is more of a point of this last year to kind of showcase the point that the conditions change throughout the winter season. And so as you can see in this photo, there's times when there is no need necessarily for that seasonal closure, for a closure of the trail, and other times where that may be necessary. As part of the protocol that the county has developed with the El Dorado National Forest Service, we feel like that protocol unto itself has been successful. And as Wendy had mentioned, we closed the trail 3 times last year for a total of 34 days. So it's essentially being very proactive. It's a resource we want to protect, and we want to make sure that we get it right. And with that, I'd like to go ahead and turn it over to Don.
Good morning, Board. Don Spear, Deputy Director, Transportation Division, Maintenance Operations. The first slide here is a video of a helicopter operation we had in there. Transportation maintenance staff coordinated efforts with Erickson Air Crane to transport rock for maintenance activities on the Rubicon Trail. We spent many hours over a 4-day period with staff on the quarry, along with spotters at various locations along the trail directing the chopper where to drop material. As you can see on the clip, over 800 tons of rock was flown to 5 drop sites approved on the trail by the U.S. Forest Service. It was a well-planned and well-thought-out organization. We needed the chopper to get material to some of the more remote sites on the trail. This is a slide of the Little Sluice area. Transportation Division bridge maintenance crews were assigned to drill and break some of the boulders on the trail to make it a little easier and a lot less rough on the traffic. Originally, there were about a dozen boulders identified to be broken, but after further inspection by staff and discussion, we determined only 4 needed to be broken. 80-plus tons of rock were flown in by Erickson Air Crane for replacement for help control with sediment, as you can see on the photo on the right. So the photo on the left is where we started, the photo on the left, or on the right is where we ended. Another couple of items that were identified in the order were the structures were constructed over water courses. The bridge on the right is the Gurley Creek Bridge, was completed in 2013 at a cost of about $1.4 million. The bridge on the right is over the Ellis Creek. They're basic same structures, and both structures were completed in the fall of 2013. The bridge on the right was a little over $1 million. What you see in this slide here is a seasonal drainage. It was called FOTR, Drainage or Friends of the Rubicon. This was a log crossing that was originally placed on the trail many years ago. It was replaced by a transportation bridge crew on the summer of 2013. This photo shows the end product after completion. The new culvert is a 3-sided structure with a rock line channel at the bottom and scour protection on both sides. You'll notice the logs, the barriers along the side, those are logs that were salvaged from the old crossing and reused for the new crossing.
So the question comes, we've done all this work, how are we going to keep it up? So the community out there, the volunteers for the Rubicon Trail are an amazing group of people. So the Board of Supervisors approved an Adopt a Trail program for this, for the Rubicon Trail. So there were 15 segments that were quickly grabbed up by the user groups. They've been trained. They are our eyes and ears on the trail. They're out there often. They do the cleaning of the BMPs, picking up the garbage, and alerting the county if there's anything that we need to be aware of and get ourselves out there to take care of it. There's also 3 levels of work that's done out there. The user groups decide if they can handle what's needed to be done out there. If it's a bigger task, Friends of the Rubicon are called in. And if it's a larger task, the county is then, we go out there and we assist in getting the supplies there or the rock or whatever is needed to get the job done. But it's definitely a process where the county is involved and we are always constantly talking to the user groups, and we appreciate them so much. The educational program, there were a lot of issues on the Rubicon, and your season is usually relatively short in the summertime. So to try to educate someone, and someone who wants to recreate is not going to want to stop and talk to you for 20 minutes about all these topics. So we decided to choose one a year. We also decided that it's difficult to know who out there has been properly educated. So we came up with a bandana campaign. And we asked, as we educated the users, to either put a sticker on their vehicle or tie a bandana somewhere so that everyone would know that they've been properly educated. It also was a way to identify people like myself, who's usually walking the trail. These bandanas are tied on my backpack, so they know that I have been properly trained also, even though I'm not in a vehicle. And it's become like a badge of honor. It's amazing how the community embraced this situation, and they listened to the message. They proudly display these on their vehicles and their bandanas, and it's wonderful to be out on the trail and see them on the kids' heads as bandanas, on the dogs, on everything. So it's really been successful. Along with the educational program, we developed, I think you have a calendar in front of you. Instead of a brochure, we decided a 16-month calendar. They will continue to look at it and continue to look at the message that we're trying to send on proper use to protect this area. Sanitation being one of the areas. We installed this restroom in 2010. We've obtained a permit from the Forest Service. We also installed a 2,000-gallon septic tank behind this, which is, I'm going to let John Arntz tell you the reason why we have that septic tank behind.
There we go. Board, John Arntz from the Rubicon Trail Foundation. And the picture in front of you is the septic hauler that Rubicon Trail Foundation raised money for, designed, and built. And this was kind of a chicken and egg situation. Nobody wanted to put bathrooms on the Rubicon because there was no way to service them. and nobody wanted to build an expensive service truck because there were no bathrooms to service. Rubicon Trail Foundation undertook to build this truck, and working in cooperation with the county, we are now eradicating the white flour being toilet paper on the ground. Forest Service conducted a survey just after Labor Day of 2014 between Loon Lake and Little Sluice. They found an 88% reduction in the amount of fecal matter and a 55% reduction in the amount of toilet paper compared to the same survey location in 2009. And we're attributing that directly to the 8 toilets that we've placed on the trail using volunteer labor and grant money from the Office of Off-Highway Vehicle Management and Recreation. There's a picture of one of our toilets being placed on the trail. We've also, since 2009, have hired mid-trail staff. These individuals are on the trail every single day of the season, and our goal is to contact every single user. They're trained to impart the educational messages and to work with the users. They have a lot of respect with the users, and they also work with the county and with the sheriff's office. Ms. Wiles alluded to spill response kits. There's some on the table over there if you'd like to see them. This BioResponse product is a product that was developed by a local company that has enzyme producing bacteria in it that actually eats the oil. So it's our staff can put this on the oil spills. The oil spills get eaten by the enzyme and literally go away within a few months. This photo shows an oil spill on the rocks. It was treated on the 23rd of May this year, and by the 14th of August was eaten. The beauty of the product is that the bacteria continue to reproduce until the oil is gone, and that when they have nothing to eat, they die and they're gone.
Good day, Board. Sergeant Jim Byers, El Dorado County Sheriff's Office. We've had a presence on the trail for almost 15 years now. When your staff did their production, the last vehicle you saw was one of our first patrol vehicles on there. Before then, we were on the trail in quads. The vehicle you see at the top is our current patrol vehicle. It's a 2007 Jeep that we've invested well over $50,000 into rocking it out and making it trail ready and keeping maintenance on it. We wanted to show that we are committed to maintaining law enforcement presence on the trail. The bottom picture, you see a brand new 2015-2016 Jeep Rubicon that after several months of negotiations with Chrysler Jeep, they donated to our department to continue our presence on the trail. And we are fully committed to doing exactly the same thing to this Jeep, investing as much money as we need to make it rock ready and trail ready. Our presence on the trail is one of great cooperation with everybody you see here. We're always obviously at the pointy end of the stick. We're out there contacting people. You can see the numbers. We contacted almost 8,000 or over 8,000 people last year. And that gives us 8,000 opportunities to spread this word. We're a cooperator with this and deeply committed to it. Thank you.
Richard?
Good morning, Richard Thornburg, District Ranger from the El Dorado National Forest. Just wanted to talk a little bit about the Forest Service role in this highly cooperative effort. We have been an active partner with the county and with all the interested parties in the management of the Rubicon Trail. We've coordinated closely with the county and all these partners through many frequent meetings, including monthly meetings of the Rubicon Oversight Committee. Early on, the Forest Service coordinated a programmatic agreement with the State Historic Property Office and the county, and that laid the groundwork for a lot of this good work. On August 14th of 2012, in the picture you see here on this slide, after the Forest Service had completed an environmental impact statement, the Forest Service granted a public road easement to El Dorado County for the portions of the trail that were on National Forest System land within El Dorado County. The EIS and one of the key pieces was the easement, but it also included many other things like authorizing the bridges, maintenance, facilities adjacent to the trail, and closure of non-system routes. It also included a saturated soil management strategy to address motor vehicle use during the wet season. The county has successfully developed and implemented a monitoring protocol for the saturated soil strategy with the Forest Service involvement and participation. The Forest Service has also played a role throughout the implementation of the project, one by supporting through free use of over 4,000 tons of rock from the forest, and also by issuing permits that were necessary for the work throughout various phases. Additionally, the Forest Service has been a partner in law enforcement, entering a memorandum of understanding with the county and the California Department of Parks and Recreation Off-Highway Motor Vehicle Division. And that provides comprehensive management of the trail, as well as interpretive and educational programs to the enthusiasts that recreate on the trail. And finally, the Forest Service has also obtained grant funding from the State Parks Division to support ongoing ground operations, maintenance, campground reconstruction, and law enforcement along the trail. It's been a highly cooperative effort. We fully support the work that has taken place. The cleanup and abatement order played a very important part to bring a lot of this about, and we fully support the proposal to rescind it at this point. Thank you.
So lastly, I just want to leave you. On Tuesday, we took an item to the Board of Supervisors in El Dorado County. We took a resolution, and they adopted this resolution, which reaffirms their commitment to the Rubicon Trail, to protect it into the future and to continue with our maintenance on the trail. I also want to thank your staff, though. Wendy Wiles has been fabulous, Marty Hartzell. They've been just wonderful to work with, and it's nice when you're faced with the issues that we were faced with to have such cooperative, wonderful people that helped us reach the answers that we needed. So I thank you so much for your staff and your assistance.
Thank you very much. Any questions by members of the board?
I'll only comment that this looks like a great success story. And when I was growing up in the high desert of Southern California, I rode motorcycles all over the desert. And when they didn't want you to go somewhere, they just put a big boulder in the middle of the road, and you basically just went around it. And so that wasn't much of a cooperative effort. That was, sort of, I'll beat you, no, I'll get around it, and I'll beat you. So this sounds like a much better opportunity to keep people on the trail and keep the activity, which gets people outdoors, and it's great. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further comments? Yes, go ahead, Carmen.
Knowing a little bit about Rubicon Trail, part of what people like is the challenge and the being out there with nature, and seeing part of this world untouched, or so I knew that there was conflict when there were going to be changes. However, what I see is that with the educational campaign and educating the people who are using it, say, look, we're preserving it so that you can use it. We're not going to change it. We're not going to turn it into a street. It's not going to be smooth. But you got the work done so you can preserve it, not only for the enthusiasts now, but even for the little babies, the little baby volunteers in the picture here. And, the work you've done has really ensured that this great place and this great activity is going to go on, hopefully indefinitely. And I really appreciate the work, and I know stuff like this doesn't happen on its own. And, I see you here, and I appreciate you individually. I'm sure there's a lot of staff people back at the office who also had a lot to do, so be sure and take back our thanks and our appreciation and admiration for all the work that you all have done. Thank you.
Will do. Thank you.
Any further comments by board members? Bob?
I volunteer with a conservation organization based in Woodland that works in the Coast Range. We have the Cow Mountain Off-Road Vehicle Recreation Area, Stony Ford, and Knoxville, and trails in the Mendocino and the BLM areas in that region. And over the last couple of years, it's been a real pleasure to develop a very strong partnership with the Blue Ribbon Coalition in particular on some of the issues that we face, and look at joint projects that can be done. And I think the project that you guys have done here is a good example of an end product that you can always work towards, where you really do some good work. And I think what you've done basically is set in place a stewardship program so that others can continue to enjoy this trail for another 100 years or more. And I'm sure you're all proud of that, and I'm just happy to be a part of it as a board member to thank you for all your hard work. I appreciate it.
Sandra?
Yes, I know I was here when all this started.
Yes, you were.
And it was overwhelming for the Rubicon Trail members and all of you. And I just want to just say that you've done a good job, but our staff has really worked to be in understanding and helping your projects that are out there that have to be helped. And I remember the forestry department had a hard time. Well, it was a hard time for everybody to see the future. I saw those slides at that time, and seeing the slides now, it's just a miracle what's happening out there, and for the people that use those trails. And I thank you very much, and thanking staff. Our staff is fabulous.
Yes, they
Thank
are.
you.
You've got all the board members
So
up
Dr.
here
Long-
really appreciative of the work that took place. And as Wendy pointed out in the beginning, it's a much different meeting today than it was
Yes,
the
you were here
last time
also,
we met
yes.
here. Yes, very different. So with that, I have just one housekeeping question.
You
Okay,
can't
Pam?
see me from that monitor in front of you.
That's right. The gentleman representing the RTF, your name is, sir? Just for the record.
My name is John Arens.
Very good. Thank you.
So-
Pamela?
So Dr. Longley, earlier, Member Schneider mentioned about writing something up about the success story of the RMP, but I think this is another item. I know at the state level, we've been working to see what we could do about off-highway vehicle roads throughout much of California and how to do that. And I think this is an opportunity for us to share the story with the state board and others to see how we can show how this cooperative working relationship could improve many of our off-highway vehicle roads throughout California in a way that it's not threatening to the users, but it also addresses the water quality concerns we have.
Well,
I found that people at all levels in life really don't intentionally want to harm the environment. They just want to have fun, and they just need to know how to do it without harming the environment.
That's true. And I found really impressive. All the pictures are great, but one of the most impressive pictures was the one showing all the different organizations and folks that are involved. And once stakeholders get involved, then they have ownership, and that ownership is a very important part of a program like this. If the county just went out there and took care of everything, I don't think you'd have the same kind of success that you're seeing. And I'm just glad and happy to see the stakeholders stepping forward, because it's that ownership that becomes real important.
And so I don't know if that was a suggestion, Pamela, that we highlight outside of this room the success, and I think all the success came with everything that was just said, but also took $7 million to make it happen, because if you don't have that money, the user groups aren't going to be able to do it, and the counties aren't going to be able to do it on their own. So getting that message out that these are projects worth spending money on, I think is a good one.
Very good.
Thank you.
I'll have staff, just as a formality, do you wish to cross-examine? Very good. Thank you very much. And thank you for your testimony and for the great story you gave us.
Thank you.
At this point, we're going to other interested parties. Excuse me, sir, if I have problems with your name. You have on your card you're a civil engineer, former employee of the county, and your first name's Steve. And I have a difficult time reading your last name. Kokmir or something of the sort.
Good morning, Board Chair. Good morning, Board. Steve Quayman, former
Quayman.
county
Okay.
employee. Yes, I are an engineer, so it's tough for me to spell right.
Well, I are one too, so that's maybe the problem.
I don't want to take too much more time. I just want to say appreciate all the work that's been done on this trail. It was 5 short years for a tall order that's been completed. And we don't hear these 2 words too much as government employees, and especially in regulatory, and that's thank you. And really, it was a team effort all around. Not one person could do this. It was truly a monumental task. And as you alluded to earlier, it takes the team, but I also say that it takes a team leader. And I think that we had one of those, and that was Vicki Sanders. She definitely kept us in line, if you will. And she did a really good job of that, because we have engineers, maintenance workers, volunteers, and we all have difference of opinions, and she would have none of that. So, okay, just putting it out there. So really, we got it done, and it just awesome. Just thinking about, I'm no longer here up in Northern California. I'm down in Southern California now. That's where I reside. And when I saw this on the agenda, I said, you know what, I got to get up there, because this is truly remarkable. It's a testimony to all the hard work, and as you pointed out earlier, that this is an example that can be used statewide, not only statewide, but probably the country. And I would basically be happy to share anything of my ideas with anybody that wants to go forward and make things better for the trails that we have in the state and abroad. So again, I really appreciate all the hard work, and I just want to say thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve. Where do you live in Southern California?
I live in Laguna Hills, and I work for the city of San Juan Capistrano, and today's my day off.
San Juan Capistrano, is that Region 4?
San Diego.
Oh, way down there, yeah, Region 9. Okay, I should know where San Juan Capistrano is.
Yes.
We can give your name to the Region 9 board as a resource.
Yes. Yeah, that's good. Yeah,
You might want to change your name.
Oh, yeah, yeah. No, we're doing good. We're going through an update to the permit, and they're looking at the hydro modification adjustments. And for the city, it's a good thing, because we're at the end, and there's a lot of discharge above us that comes to us, and so there is some rationale thought, if you will, to hydro modification, and if we're right there, there's not much we can do to sink it back in the ground. So they are relieving us. Well, that's the proposal, to relieve the city of some of the onerous duties of hydro modification at the end before it hits the ocean. So, thanks.
Thank you, Steve.
You're welcome.
Scott Johnson, RTF.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, Board. My name is Scott Johnston, and I'm actually a former director of Rubicon Trail Foundation. I was on the board, and I was part of Panel A that presented to you in 2009. And after that, I got the dubious distinction of serving as the Rubicon Trail Foundation president for 3 years. So I was an instrumental part of a lot of the coordinating with the county, coordinating volunteers, doing whatever assistance we could from a foundation level to assist in complying with this cleanup and abatement order. So I just felt compelled to let you know today that as a volunteer, my first volunteer project on the Rubicon Trail was in 2003. And I've been volunteering up there ever since, and I still plan on volunteering as a member of Friends of the Rubicon. And I just want to let you know that the Friends of the Rubicon, the volunteers, and the people that the county has given the ability to take ownership of the parts of the trail through the through the Adopt a Trail program, which we fought really hard for a very long time. And those people are going to continue to have that sense of ownership now because of that instrument of responsibility. So thank you for allowing the county to be able to do that for the users. And the users will be dedicated to maintaining this trail for the next 100 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next card I have is for Amy Granite.
I'm sorry, I stepped on my dog's foot in my rush to address the board. Amy Granite, and I'm Managing Director of the California Off-Road Vehicle Association. And as I heard the board recognize all the efforts previously of your employees, you understand how important it is to say thank you to everyone who worked on a really, really tough effort. And this really was a collaborative and cooperative effort. The water board staff, the county, the Forest Service, everyone was incredible. Some of the most incredible people were the volunteers who continue to work really hard. And I want to recognize all their hard work. In the beginning, it was their passion that you saw that led them to not really understand what was going on and be fearful. And in the end, it's their passion that brought this to fruition. That same energy, that same caring about the environment. But because we work in my organization throughout the state, I did want to let you know that there are groups like this throughout the state. Member Schneider recognized the groups that are working in Stonyford and Knoxford and South Cow Mountain. There are groups in Tahoe National Forest, in other areas of the El Dorado, Sierra National Forest, San Bernardino, where Richard Thornburg used to be, has the largest adopted trail program in the entire country, down through Imperial Sand Dunes. There are incredible groups doing incredible work to maintain and manage OHV trails. Yes, we can use more money. Always, just putting it out there in case some happens to come our way. But it's also due to the efforts of collaborative work with counties and with the State Water Board. So we appreciate all of it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Were you at the, believe you were at the BLM 2.0 planning meeting?
Yes.
And yeah, I saw you there, I think. And I think some of what happened here and other success stories carries over to that planning process. It was interesting. I mean, half the room was probably off-road vehicle users, and it was interesting to me that, there was a little bit of concern and angst, but really what went through that meeting was a lot of feelings of let's help the BLM do a good job. And I think that was what came through in that room, for me anyway, and in that presentation. And I think we share that. And the other thing I think we share is a silent thought about how we might pirate Vicky to work for our organizations.
Please don't take her. We need her. But she is wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. At this point, we're ready for closing statement by El Dorado County. Vicky, or yes, I think you're a marked person now. The headhunters
I am
are out.
such a marked person. At least it's in a good way this time, because
Yeah.
when we were deucing the rocks in Little Sluice, I was not on the good side of many people. I just hope that you take staff's recommendations in rescinding this order for us, for El Dorado County.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Closing statement by staff.
The county and the Forest Service have complied with the cleanup and abatement order. The Rubicon Trail is a much better place than it was, and I believe water quality will continue to be protected. So we ask that you rescind the cleanup and abatement order.
Thank you very much. Going to close the hearing at this time. Of course, the board may be speaking during our discussions with the executive officer and or our attorney. So with that, I'll accept a motion or any further discussion.
I'd be pleased to make a motion to rescind the cleanup and abatement order.
And I'll second.
Bob's made the motion and John seconded. And just to double check, I don't think there's any revisions, but are there any? No, there are no revisions.
No late revisions.
Good. Any further discussion? Then we'll go ahead with the voting. Please call the roll. Yes. Do you want to talk? Please call the roll.
Ms. Ramirez? Yes. Mr. Costantino? Yes. Mr. Schneider? Yes. Ms. Miraz?
Yes.
Dr. Longley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We're going to take a break in just a moment, but just to give you the order for the rest of the day, the next item we'll be taking up is Musco Olive, item number 25, when we come back from break. Following that, we will be taking up the SAC Regional item number 24, and we'll conclude the day with Mount Diablo. That's item number 23. So we will take a break. It is now 12 till. Definitely we'll be back in session on agenda item number 25, which are the revised waste discharge requirements for Musco Family Olives. This is the time and place for a hearing to consider revision of the waste discharge requirements for Musco Family Olives in San Joaquin County. Is there anyone present who is contesting the proposed actions and wishes to present evidence or testimony on this matter? Since there's no one present to contest this matter, the board will proceed based on the agenda materials and the record. Are there any late revisions or staff comments?
Yes, Dr. Longley, there are a couple late revisions related to stormwater and financial assurances, and I believe those have been handed out to the board.
Thank you. Does council have any legal issues to discuss at this time?
No legal issues.
Thank you. Hearing is now closed. Board members may consult with our council and executive officer. Any comments, discussion? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to revise the waste discharge requirement.
Do you have the late revisions? Oh, okay.
Yeah, they were.
And Andrew, do the dischargers know about the late revisions?
Yes, they know about them and have agreed to them. Sorry.
We have just slightly more than 3 pages, some of it being strikeout.
Do you want to characterize the late revisions? Just 'cause it's more
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. So the late revisions related to stormwater are essentially to allow the discharger their thinking about trying to get out of their current stormwater permit, and this gives them the flexibility to do that within these WDRs. And then the late revisions related to financial assurance, essentially they will be submitting a report to us in April on financial assurance mechanisms for closure and maintenance. And this changes some of the language and again allows them to propose to us mechanisms that are consistent with the interpretation of the Title 27 regulations.
And you cleaned up some language. Surface water became stormwater, and there was some other editing which was simply cosmetic in nature. Any further discussion? If not, the chair will entertain a motion to revise the WDRs.
Given that the dischargers are aware of the late revisions and it's not being contested, I would move that we approve with the late revisions.
Do I have a second? Carmen moves and Sandra seconds. Call the roll, please.
Ms. Ramirez? Yes. Mr. Costantino?
Yes.
Ms. Miraz?
Yes.
Mr. Schneider?
Yes.
Dr. Longley?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you very much. We'll now go to item number 24. At this time, the board will receive an update on the Sacramento Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. This is an information item only and no action will be taken, although the board may ask questions. Following the presentation, interested parties will be allowed 3 minutes each to address the board. We'll now begin with the staff presentation.
Good morning, Chairman Longley, members of the board. My name is Jim Marshall. I'm a senior engineer in the Sacramento office, and I will be introducing a status report on the Sacramento Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant. I will begin with a brief history of what has transpired since adoption of Regional Sand's NPDES permit in December 2010, and then Regional Sand staff will update the board on their facility upgrades. The Sacramento Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant is located about 10 miles south of downtown Sacramento, as shown here by the red star. The facility discharges to the Sacramento River within the Sacramento-San Joaquin Delta and serves a population of about 1.4 million people within the Sacramento region, which includes most of the area on this map. The facility is permitted to discharge an average dry weather flow of 181 million gallons per day. In December 2010, the NPDES permit was adopted and requires major facility upgrades, including tertiary filtration to remove pathogens and nitrogen removal to reduce ammonia and nitrate. Following the permit renewal, Regional Sand and the California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance filed petitions with the State Water Board. The State Water Board reviewed the permit and adopted a water quality order in December 2012 that for the most part upheld the permit with minimal revisions required. Regional Sand and CSPA subsequently filed lawsuits with the Sacramento Superior Court. The lawsuit filed by Regional Sand primarily contested the nitrogen removal and tertiary filtration requirements, and stipulated settlement agreements were reached with Regional Sand, resulting in some changes to the permit, including seasonal filtration requirements. This removed filtration requirements for peak flows at times when wet weather and other conditions minimize public use of the river. All wastewater is disinfected during these peak events, but the highest peaks are not filtered. Regional Sand is planning to increase its flow equalization facilities and operate the facility to minimize the occurrence of peak flows that do not receive filtration. The Sacramento Superior Court recently issued a court ruling regarding the CSPA lawsuit. The court ruling will result in some permit adjustments, but does not affect the major facility upgrades.
What do you mean by some permit adjustment?
Yeah, and what was the court ruling?
Dr. Longley, we'll be discussing the CSPA litigation in closed session, so the board will be briefed on that.
Thank you.
Regional Sand is currently moving forward with major upgrades of the facility. The permit requires the nitrogen removal upgrades to be completed by May 2021, and the tertiary filtration upgrades are required by May 2023. So now I'll return the remainder of the time over to Regional Sand staff to provide a status report on these major facility upgrades.
Okay, there you go. Good morning, Chair, members of the staff, or members of the board, sorry. Before I start my part of the presentation, I want to acknowledge Kent's special date here today. He's worked really hard on our permit. It's been a number of years that brought us here today. And it's not always that we agreed, but at least I could count on Kent to tell me straight up. I mean, that's what I like about him, and certainly we're going to miss him. Obviously, Jim helped a lot on the permit, as well as Kathy Harder, who is no longer with the board. I'll spend a few minutes with my slides, and I have...
I'm sorry, can you introduce yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you, with all the talk that I had. My name is Prabhakar Somawarapu. I'm the district engineer, or the general manager for the Regional Sanitation District. As you were hearing the word Regional Sand, and during the break, Chair Longley came in, SAC Regional. Yes, we used to be called SAC Regional. We're trying to move away from that name and more to the Regional Sand, because people do not know what SAC Regional means. At least Regional Sand has a sanitation name, and they can clearly associate with us. But still, that name needs a little bit of time to kind of permeate. So I'll just quickly go through, and as I was sitting there looking at the agenda, and I saw none of you are our service members, our customers. So you don't pay our bills. You probably don't know a lot about the sanitation district in terms of the history. Prior to the 1970s, we had 22 different treatment plants serving this region. Many of them were discharging water into the American River, and as well as some of them into the Sacramento River. Then with the Clean Water Act in 1972 and also a benefit of about $460 million grant, Regional Sand was formed and consolidated all these treatment plants into one. That's in Elk Grove, which Jim has shown the location. We started the construction in 1976 and opened the gates for sewage to flow in 1982. This is one you just saw from Jim. It's a little different look, but we do serve all the way up to West Sacramento, north to the airport, east to Folsom, and south to the little communities of Cortland and Walnut Grove. Also come to the plant. They used to have separate permits, but about 7 years ago or so, we consolidated and brought them into the regional facility. Just a little bit information on Regional Sand. Regional Sand does not provide direct service to customers. There are others that have to collect the sewage and bring to Regional Sand. There are 4 different collection agencies in this region, the largest being the Sacramento Area Sewer District, which I serve as a district engineer for that district as well. So I have 2 roles. And then the other 3 collection agencies are the City of West Sacramento, Folsom, and the City of Sacramento. So if you lived in the unincorporated areas of the Sacramento or the City of Citrus Heights, Rancho, Cordova, Elk Grove, parts of Sacramento, all of which is served by the Sacramento Area Sewer District. But for all of those guys, Regional Sand provides the conveyance and treatment. A little bit of statistics on what the Regional Sand's assets are. There are 177 miles of interceptor pipes. These are the pipes ranging from about 5-foot diameter and 3-foot diameter and all the way up to 12. We have river crossings. Actually, pipes go onto the river, go to the west side, and then come back down south, and then cross again back to get to the plant. 11 major pump stations, largest being able to serve about 230 million gallons per day. And the treatment plant is located on 3,400 acres. Fortunately, our forefathers had the foresight to get the land there, and we have a good buffer. When we built the plant, nobody was there, but if you ever go by, everybody is surrounding the plant, and we have the luxury of having that surrounding land to keep the treatment plant away from the folks. So it's operated 24/7. So coming to the 2010 permit, it required, Jim said, it's removal of ammonia as well as filtration. We estimated at the time the cost to be about $2.1 billion. And our current estimate still is ranging between $1.5 to $2.1 billion. Again, ammonia must be removed by 2021, and by 2023 we have to finish the filtration. When we had the permit in 2010, we went in a parallel track. While we appealed the permit to the state board, we immediately took a couple of actions. One is we decided to build a pilot facility so that we can test different technology trains to pick the most cost-effective technology for what we needed to do. Yes, it's a little expensive for a pilot facility. It's $18 million, but we needed the size because this is a large facility. You need to be able to scale up when we're done with the testing, especially since we're talking hundreds of millions to a couple of $1 billion of the total cost. And it was worth every penny of it. We found through the pilot studies that we were able to select cheaper technologies, both in the form for the ammonia removal as well as the filtration. So we've tested, so we're not making any changes to the primary, the front end of the treatment process. We're replacing essentially the heart of the treatment process and then adding filters at the end. That's what's going to happen once the upgrade is done. So we took the primary effluent and then we tested the heart. We used the biological nutrient removal process. And then we tested 3 different filtration configurations: membrane filtration, granular media filtration, as well as a granular media filtration with the ozone, which essentially acts as a biological filter. And then with those 3, we again tested 3 different disinfection technologies: chlorine, UV, and ozone. All this study all this work was actually presented at the WERF, Water Environment Research Foundation, contributed a little bit of money for the testing. It was published, and many other facilities are benefiting from our work. Now, how will the permit affect our ratepayers? Remember I said we took a couple of actions immediately. First, we decided to do the pilot system, as well as our board has gone on a proactive rate adjustment path. In 2011, they put in place 3 years worth of rate increases, $2, $2, and $2. So at the time, our rate was $20 a month just for the regional sand charge. So the first set of rate increases brought to 26. And then we went back again this last year. Early this year, went to 29, and then we'll have another 2 more increases, one next July, one the following year. So rate increases up to $35 are already in place. And based on the designs, we're doing the designs, so you'll hear the status of where we are in a little bit here. We'll adjust the trajectory of where the rate needs to be. And we estimate at this point the rates to be somewhere in mid-40s to low 50s. Remember, when we were receiving the permit at the time, we were estimating the costs are going to be around mid-60s per month, just for the regional charge, going from $20 to mid-60s. Now we're projecting, because of the pilot technologies and being able to work with the board staff and being able to reduce the cost on the filtration and so forth, we now project the cost to be in mid-40s to low 50s.
How do these costs compare with plants of similar size throughout California?
It's hard to compare because there aren't very many plants of this size in California doing exactly the same thing. Obviously, you know that the coastal plants don't have the type of technological requirements. The closest we can come to is San Jose, which has had this for a very long time. I don't know what it cost them at the time, but their rates are probably around $35, $40 a month, somewhere thereabouts. So that's all I can say.
So let me ask you a question. Can you go back one slide? If you can. So just for my information, do these rates increases, are these for all, is this all for capital improvements?
Most, if not all of it. So you're right. Everything goes to the capital.
And so then by 2023, all the additional money you collected will pay for the capital?
Good question. No. So this is, so we're going to be debt financing. Roughly about 30% of the total cost we will pay as a pay-go or cash. So these rates were raised early on so that we can generate cash to put as a down payment, essentially, if you will, for a house. If you buy a house, usually 20-30% goes as a down payment. That's what the sanitation district will do. The rest of the 70% we're intending to borrow, which we've already done a smaller portion of it early this year. If we were to pay entirely with our rates, the rates would have to be in probably $70 or $80 range, which that's just not the way how things are done, especially when you're financing such a large project.
If looking at this, in an earlier slide you showed the 4 major dischargers that collect the wastewater. So you incur this charge that you pass on. Picking on one of them, Folsom, for example, do they put on an additional charge for operation of their collection system?
Good question. Yes, they do. So those of the folks that live here in this sanitation district service area, they'll see 2 charges. One from the local collection agency. That charge ranges from about $6 a month, that's in West Sacramento, to about $19.85 a month, that's in the Sacramento area sewer district service area. So on top of it, they'll see a $26 charge, which is today for the regional sand. So you're looking at about $46 today is the highest. City of Sacramento and City of Folsom are very close to that too. So if you're in that area, you're looking at about $44 to $45 a month, which will end up going to 65 somewhere about if you're looking at the total. by the end of the year.
Thank you.
Any other questions before? So this is a kind of a high-level overview of the plant, the 3,400 acres. So Ruben Robles, he's the Director of Operations, who's responsible for building these upgrades. Will come up and talk about the major components of the project and the schedules and so forth.
Good morning, Board. My name is Ruben Robles. I'm the Director of Operations for Regional SAN. I'm responsible for the operation of the treatment plant as well as our large pipe collection system that are fed by those 4 agencies that were mentioned earlier. We are fortunate to be in the middle of 3,400 acres, and to orient you, we have Highway 5 to the left or west of the center of the plant. We have the Sacramento River even further than that to the west. To the south of us is Laguna Boulevard. To the east is Franklin Boulevard, and north of us is City of Sacramento.
How far away are you from that residential that you can see there to the right?
Roughly, it varies, but roughly about a mile, which is a good distance because we're very careful with, we don't want to have odor complaints in neighborhood, noise, lights. So we're very fortunate to have a pretty good buffer from the community. And I should say a good portion of that buffer is habitat protection land. So we only are using roughly the middle 900 acres. The balance of the 3,400 acres is what we call our buffer lands. It's protected land, lots of habitat in that area.
I used to live just south of that plant, and they do a good job of controlling odors.
So one of the goals I have this morning in my presentation is to give you a sense of the various projects that make up the EcoWater project. Again, the EcoWater project is what we're calling this MPDS project to meet those requirements. And secondly, to give you a sense of the magnitude of this project, the project could cost as much as $2.1 billion. That is, I believe, the biggest capital improvement project in Sacramento County history. If not the biggest, it's close to it. To put that in perspective, the Sacramento County Airport's expansion was only a $1 billion project. So this is very, very large. We have about 17 discrete projects that make up the EcoWater project. And on a monthly basis, as we get into heavy construction, we estimate we're going to have so much construction going on that we'll be spending on the order of about $30 million per month in construction expenditures. At the height of construction, we'll see as many as 600 workers, construction workers, coming on site every day. That we'll be we have to channel those folks through our gates between 6 and 7, so it'll be a very heavy peak flow of construction traffic. Same thing at the end of the day. So the logistics of managing this operation are challenging. We obviously are going to be planning not only for the short term, the next 10 years, but also we have to allow space for those future facilities. This county, this region will grow. So we're planning for build-out conditions of 350 million gallons of wastewater per day, average dry weather flow. As you heard earlier, our current permit is 181 average dry weather flow in million gallons of wastewater per day. So we have the capacity in the area to grow significantly. We also need to allow areas for our solids processing. Right now we keep most of the solids that we produce on site, about 75%, and the other 1/4 or so go off-site to recycling. We create a small pellet for agricultural reuse. We also need a plan, and are planning for recycled water projects on a larger scale. We currently have a small, relatively small recycled water facility that provides recycled water to portions of Elk Grove for landscape irrigation. We'd like to grow that water recycling operation into the future. Because as you know, and I'll get into this, at the end of the day, when we're producing that tertiary water, everything that comes out of our plant will be able to be used for recycled water purposes, for landscape irrigation, for agricultural reuse. So, as I said, the EcoWater project has a lot of different components. I won't go into every one of these here because I'm going to get into some of the specifics. But we are going to be doing, obviously, biological nutrient reduction. That's the process to remove ammonia and nitrates. We have 2 new pump stations that we currently do not have today. We have to include additional flow storage capacity, and you'll see a graphic of that, as well as some other peripheral facilities. So the biggest single project within the EcoWater project is again, the BNR, biological nutrient removal process. This is about 16 acres, extremely large facility to remove ammonia and nitrate. But again, biological process. This is basically what's going to be changed out in the heart of the current process. We currently use pure oxygen. We generate pure oxygen on site. We use that pure oxygen to grow the bacteria in our current secondary process. All that will be changed out with this air-activated sludge process. So that's one of the challenges for us. We have to change this facility out while we have an operating plant. So we're going to be meeting our current secondary standards prior to the permit deadline, transitioning in these BNR basins and have it fully functional, again, while we're operating the plant.
Just a question.
Yes, sir.
As far as your O&M, you're going with a pure ox plant now, and you're moving over to this other process. On a per unit basis, how does that impact your O&M?
Our current annual budget, our operating budget total for the year is about $110 million. That pays for our staff, our chemicals, our electricity. Just to put it in perspective, our electrical bill is about $11 million a year, so it's large. Going forward, once we have these new facilities online, we estimate it'll add about $40 to $50 million a year for electricity and other associated costs. So it adds quite a bit to our operating
But
budget.
is that at full build-out flow 350?
No. That'll take us, once we have these full facilities in 2023, the filtration as well as the nutrient reduction, we estimate at that point in a decade, it'll add another $40 to $50 million to our annual operating budget. So that's
what I hear you saying is that this new process really doesn't add to energy efficiency of the plant.
not at all. The BNR actually uses, because we're now using blowers to bring in just air and pumping it through the biological process. It's not as efficient as a pure oxygen process.
So you have to move more air to
Much
get
more.
the equivalent amount of oxygen, yeah. So are you looking at ways to offset that cost?
We are. We're looking at solar. It won't come close to offsetting the additional energy, but it is part of our potential CEQA mitigation options. So we're looking at solar as one of those alternatives. But again, it will not come close to matching the energy we need. The other big energy consumer that's not there today is filtration. We don't have filters today. That will also use a lot of energy.
Okay, thank you.
So before I give you a description of this pump station, right now we currently have very large pumps at the low point of the existing plant. Those pumps lift the wastewater to a higher elevation, and that wastewater can go through the entire treatment process downhill by gravity. On occasion, if the river level is higher, we have to pump out to the river. But most of the time, about 80% of the time, everything is once we have that initial lift from the pump station, everything is gravity flow to the river. But because we're installing the nutrient reduction process, we have to lift the wastewater within the plant to that higher elevation. And then again, we have to do it in the filter because they both have additional head requirements. So we have to introduce or construct 2 new pump stations. The first one is what we call the primary effluent pump station. It takes primary effluent from the existing process and lifts it to a higher elevation to that BNR, biological nutrient reduction process. And so that then goes to the BNR process, which is about 330 MGD capacity, including this pump station. We have to have electrical buildings that go with this facility. We have additional odor control. As was mentioned, odor control is very important to us. We have odor control systems throughout the plant today, but because we're adding new facilities, we'll be expanding and modifying those odor control systems going forward. Flow equalization. This is an important component of our project. We currently have flow equalization. These are basically large basins. They're commonly empty, but during high peak flow events or when we have to divert from the river because we're not meeting our thermal requirements or our dilution ratios, so we have to stop flow or reduce flow to the river, we can store in these flow equalization ponds. These total pond volume right now is about 335 million gallons of storage. We're going to deepen those and add about 80 million gallons of additional storage. So that will give us additional flexibility for these peak flows and reduce the peak flows that go to BNR, reduce the flows that go to filtration. I should also add that these flow equalization basins will have additional vertical dividers. It'll give us additional flexibility on managing those flows. This project is currently in design. Design is expected to, or will be done later this year, then advertised for bid, and we expect to issue a notice to proceed to that contractor in early 15. So in 15, we're going to begin a significant amount of construction. Another major project is the disinfection chemical storage project. As your board probably knows, we currently use gaseous chemicals, chlorine and sulfur dioxide, for disinfection. So we bring in a significant amount of gaseous chemicals on site. We are changing out to the liquid form of these chemicals, predominantly for safety. As you know, Both water agencies and wastewater agencies throughout the nation are moving away from gaseous chemicals, and we're doing the same. So this is an aggressive project. We will complete the design in early 2015. The contractor will then begin work by spring of 15, and we expect to be done with the conversion by the latter part of 2016. We're also going to be installing what we call basically side stream treatment. Currently, we have a couple of concentrated flows of ammonia that come back to the plant headworks. We have what we call our solid storage basins, part of our solids treatment process, that bring back a highly concentrated form of ammonia. And we also have what I mentioned is our biosolids recycling facility, the facility to recycle biosolids to a fertilizer. Both of those streams, rather than sending them to the headworks of the plant and then get diluted with the rest of the flow, they're going to be contained and routed to this side stream treatment for a more cost-effective treatment of these concentrated streams. Currently in design, and we're still determining what our construction process or timing will be, but that's in design right now. This is actually not a major pump station. It's actually a change out of an existing pumping system. We have to return the activated sludge to that biological nutrient reduction process. The existing pumps we have today don't have the capacity, either the head, the lift, or the flow, because those two parameters will change with the new facility. So we have to install 48 new return activated sludge pumps. Again, under design, complete with the design of February of 16, and the contractors start work mid of 2016 as well. Here's the second of the very large pump stations. This is the pump station to lift the wastewater after our secondary treatment tanks up to the filters. 330 MGD capacity. Again, giving the wastewater additional lift, additional head to go through those filters. This is one of the projects that Prabhakar mentioned were one of the results of the pilot study. We're saving over $100 million by going with sand filtration as opposed to the membrane filters. Obviously, membranes are very effective, but they're also quite costly. Through our pilot study, we showed that the sand filters, very similar to water treatment, are effective for this process and will meet the MPS permit requirements. This is a project that is not due until May of 2023 as far as operation. So we are doing right now what's called the basis of design report, basically early planning, and then expect to issue a contract for consultant design sometime next year. As part of filtration, we also have to have a contact basin. Obviously, when we add chlorine, it takes time for that chlorine to disinfect, to kill the bacteria, the protozoa, the virus. So there will be contact basins to allow for that disinfection process before the wastewater is discharged to the Sacramento River. Again, another project that's one of the latter projects and not yet in design. This is our cash flow graphic. What I really want to highlight is the curve. The blue portions of this graphic is construction dollars, and below that are planning, design, construction management expenses, etc. But the blue is construction dollars. And as you'll see, roughly in 2015 is when the curve starts to go up. We're going to start spending a lot of money on construction, but there's a significant peak in 2017, 2018, 2019. We're going to be spending, again, so much construction work going on that we estimate about $30 million per month in construction expenditures. So the highlight here is that we're going to have a lot of work in a very concentrated period of time. Schedule. I won't get into all the detail, but these are the major projects that I just spoke about. The key is at the lower left. Basically, if you see a green portion of a bar, that's planning. Blue, again, is construction. Purple is what we call commissioning or startup. Some of these projects can take a year to really get them checked out and make sure everything's operating well. And then the red in the first bar is our CEQA and permitting process. Our board of directors approved certified the CEQA document in September 24th, just a number of weeks ago, but we still have a number of permits to obtain before the end of the year. The highlight here is those blue bars. We're going to be going roughly 8 of the projects are going to start construction in 2015. So really, we're gearing up for construction.
Excuse me.
Yes.
David, can I ask you a question? David Coop?
Yes.
So after the last item, somebody came up to me and mentioned that because we had required the Rubicon Trail to undertake their activities, it was CEQA exempt. And that allowed them to do BMPs in a much faster manner. And he was just mentioned it to me. And here that we have a big long line for CEQA. It may not be a question for now to be answered. I don't want to interrupt this briefing, but maybe before the end of the day, you could just.
We can certainly talk about it at your pleasure.
Great. Thank you.
Well, if you could show us how to exempt CEQA, would be good for us too.
And given that you have all this construction going on, 30 million in a short period of time, in a month, is CEQA requiring you to do things that disrupt the neighborhood less, like you stagger in the workers and different construction times? I know it's not related to water, but you know, we want to make sure that the residents nearby are affected as least as possible.
That's right. The most significant impacts are going to be traffic, and most of the traffic is going to be coming in off Laguna Boulevard and most likely off of Highway 5. And so we're going to have to be making some improvements on Laguna Boulevard to allow for longer queues of trucks. If we need to, we're obviously we'll be monitoring the traffic, but if we need to, we'll have to stagger the entry time of construction workers. That's an option. If we need to, we can do 2 shifts a day. Those aren't planned yet, but there are options in our document. Another area is we have to mitigate for air quality impacts. That's another area. Noise shouldn't be a problem because we're removed from the community, but we will monitor and make sure that we don't cause noise impacts to the community. So that is a very important thing for us. We don't want to impact the community to the extent we can. But traffic will be something we will work with very closely with Elk Grove. And in fact, we're going to be working on an outreach program to ensure Elk Grove and surrounding communities are aware of what's going on. If there's any issues, they contact our media folks to resolve it as quickly as we can.
Well, and you've built a whole new entrance to your treatment plant.
That's right.
So you don't have to be having all the trucks going right up next to the residential areas.
That's correct. We historically we've had a major, or our main entrance off of Sims, off Franklin, but that's a 2-lane road. It will not accommodate the traffic that we're talking about. So, as Mr. Landau mentioned, one of the projects we finished earlier, or actually last year, is a 4-lane road off of Laguna Boulevard. That it will be our construction entrance. So that's where all the traffic will be coming in for this project, because our old road could not handle that.
While we're at this point, and if you can do it in about 1 minute, 1.5 minutes, David, tell why they have to go through CEQA, or better yet, explain the comment that.
Well, I think what Board Member Costantino is driving at is what specific board actions constitute a requirement to comply with the California Environmental Quality Act. And I guess fortunately or unfortunately for us, under the NPDES program, there is a specific statutory exemption from having to comply with CEQA when the board issues NPDES permits. So except for a very, very, very narrow exception, generally speaking, the board's issuance of NPDES permits is exempt from the requirements of CEQA. In relationship to the Rubicon Trail, I'm not sure what, in terms of the county's activities and what they did out there at the site. CEQA is generally triggered by what's called a local or public agency, as those terms are defined by regulation. And to the extent that a local or public agency is taking a, quote, discretionary approval of a project meaning something that is subject to statutory and regulatory definition, then that local or public agency would have to comply with the requirements of the California Environmental Quality Act. In the context of the board's actions in issuing a cleanup and abatement order pursuant to Water Code Section 13304, there are specific regulatory exemptions in the CEQA guidelines, for example, for enforcement actions that do not require the board to engage in a CEQA analysis or to make CEQA findings as a condition of issuing a cleanup and abatement order.
But this is the discretionary, what we have in front of us is the discretionary activity that you're talking about that requires CEQA.
The discretionary activity as it pertains to CEQA, I think, has to do with what regional SANS activities are and what they're going to have to do for purposes of CEQA compliance. When they come back to us and it comes time to amend or revise their NPDES permit, again, generally speaking, issuance of that NPDES permit is exempt from CEQA under Water Code Section 13389.
Thank you. John, does that satisfy you? Sure. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
And I'm almost to my last slide. So again, a very lower right, the compliance dates you've already heard about. The first one is May of 2021 for the ammonia nitrate reduction process. It's got to be fully operational, proven, and working well by that date. And then again, filtration by May of 2023, fully operational. Lower right are the dates. So I thought I'd end on this slide. Again, you've seen some of these facilities, but this is a good way to, if you have any questions of me or Prabhakar. I guess the highlight here is you get a sense of the existing plant and the footprint of the new facilities. You'll see some items that are in gray. Those are the first phase of facilities that are going in the next 10 years. Again, BNR, biological nutrient reduction, filters. We have to move staff from some existing locations because they're going to be in waterfront property in a few years. We have to allow space, those blue areas, for future construction for growth of the community. So that concludes my presentation.
Your growth, though, looks to me like you're not expanding your overall footprint all that much. Am I correct?
Correct. We will remain within that 900-acre process area. We're fortunate that even within the process area, it's a very large site. So we were fortunate that it was built this way.
Some good foresight.
Yes.
Any questions, comments?
No, I'll just comment that looks like you have a very clear plan, and certainly the execution sounds like it's planned for as well. So, I just commend you on the presentation, and it's good to hear all this information.
Thank you.
I guess my only question is, I'm assuming you're working with our staff on a continual basis, or not. I mean, or is this something we hand off to you and you come back to us at some date certain? Are there requirements?
Many meetings.
I would think so, but is there any other formal action we take between now and 2023, or
we did that. Well, hopefully they'll stay on track, so we don't have to have formal action. Right. The 2010 permit. So we will have a permit renewal in that process, and I don't think we would change the requirements much at all. We did a significant change in 2010. So.
It's my job to make sure we stay on track, meet those compliance dates, stay on budget, and make sure we do the best project for the community.
I guess just for my own personal interest, I guess I'd like to talk with you offline. I'll tell you the topics I'd like to talk to you on is why you're choosing liquid chlorine. What is your major disinfecting agent that you're expecting? Is it chloramines, or are you enhancing your injection to try to do a free chlorine kill as much as you can? Those questions along that line, which are purely technical.
We'd be glad to entertain those questions. In fact, if your board would like a tour of the plant, we'd love that as well.
I think I'd like that at a point, yes. Maybe that'd be the time to ask the question.
Sure.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments?
I just wanted to comment that I'm appreciative that they serve their customers 24/7, 365 days out of the year. So,
so do we.
When you're in the water or wastewater business, that becomes actually even more so in the wastewater business, because that stuff doesn't stop flowing.
No.
And I am a paying customer in Sac Regional SAN, and I appreciate the 24/7 service.
Very good. Is there any other comments by yourselves or by board staff?
I'd just like, Dr. Longley, you would like a tour. Are there any other members who would like a tour? If you're around? Yeah. Okay.
Any further comments by staff or vice? I got to remember that. I keep saying Sac Regional. Sac SAN?
Regional SAN.
Regional SAN. There you go. Regional SAN.
I've been around 22 years. I don't have it right either yet.
I know. Regional SAN, RS. Okay. Very good. With that said, then, we thank you very much for the presentation. I hope to see you on your site, touring your plant. And we are going to adjourn for lunch.
Dr. Long, if I could just make a quick closed session announcement. The board will be meeting in closed session pursuant to the agenda announcement litigation filed against the Central Valley Water Board, item B, as in boy, the California Sport Fishing Protection Alliance versus the Central Valley Water Board. And item C, the City of Manteca versus the Central Valley Water Board.
And the board will also be meeting closed session on personnel issues.
I'm not aware of that, but if the board so chooses, the board can meet in closed session, discuss personnel
Yes, it
matters.
will. Thank you. Cam's here, yeah.